Hi everyone, and today we're going to be doing something a little bit different, and we're going to be reviewing CoreJJ's solo queue games. For those of you who don't know who CoreJJ is, he is a world champion, a support main. He has won LCS several times. He has earned the MVP for LCS several times, and he's just widely regarded as one of the best supports of NA for a very long time. And he is currently playing on the Korean server, and he is boasting an absolutely insane 72% win rate. So reviewing CoreJJ is going to be broken up into two parts. Today, part one, we're just going to have a look at his Engager gameplay on Nautilus. I was a little bit hesitant to make a video like this, because whenever I tune into pro support players' games, they make so many mistakes and poor decisions that when I did watch them, that I sometimes find it hard to watch. I frequently checked out Carrier's stream, CoreJJ's stream, and they are two of the most well-known and best supports in the world. And maybe I tune in at bad times, maybe they're tired from scrimming, maybe they're autopiloting, maybe they play different when they stream, or maybe they're testing something specific out, but I am often left disappointed. And what the situation I wanted to avoid is coming off really arrogant, reviewing these fantastically skilled and talented players, and then critiquing them. But what I'm going to do is try and find some of their best performances in solo queue games, potentially when they were off stream as well, so that I can showcase what they really can do. Alright, so the Engager game we're going to look at for CoreJJ is he is playing Nautilus into Pyke. And the first thing I want to look at is his rune setup. So I talked about in my Nord guide that you need Aftershock or Hail of Blades to match Pyke's laning prowess. If you take Glacial, you don't have the luxury to take Glacial, you need more stats because Pyke has better all-ins. He also takes double armor in his runes here. And the thing about stacking resistances in the runes is that they provide depreciating value. It's kind of like ability haste, where the more ability haste you build, the less cooldown reduction it gives you. So you take less, so each point of armor reduces less percentage physical damage the more that you get. And so taking the adaptive, AP/AD rune will give you a lot more value in the laning phase, especially if you're going to be aggressive and looking for trades. The next thing, what we're going to see happen is that he's going to go for an invade, and this is very popular on the Eastern servers, like the Chinese and the Korean servers, as everyone plays very aggressive, and it's also really good for Nautilus. It's part of his strength in his kit to be aggressive invades in level 1s. So if this is to happen, and you decide to invade on one side of the map, you need to either base by 52 seconds, or you need to start Sweeper, because the most important thing is that you have Sweeper for the mid bush in the lane so that you can actually contest prior. And if you don't have Sweeper and you allow Pyke to control this bush and you don't ward it, and this is dark and then he looks for hook, it's much easier for him to push you out and control the lane. So yeah, he invades, and he doesn't make a plan to base at a specific time, and he doesn't just straight up start sweep so that he can invade and still have Sweeper for the lane. Apart from that, he pushes them out and he goes back. And he is posturing to control the mid bush. And so the AD matchup for red team is very favorable. Kai'Sa gets priority over Ezreal. Kai'Sa can just spam Q. They get to lane first because they did a short trade, a short leash, and then sprinted as fast as possible to lane. So he gets to posture in the mid bush here, and Pyke also uses one of his relic stacks on the first wave, so that means that level 2 is going to be much more likely for Nautilus to get now. But what Pyke can easily look to do is posture in this bush and look to hook Nautilus out of it. He shouldn't be allowing Nautilus control of this bush and getting this much pressure. So what CoreJJ is doing here is good. He is controlling the mid bush, however this is not reliable, and ensuring that it can be the most reliable is by taking Sweeper. So he goes for a short trade, and this is very, very scary. If he gets hooked here, he is screwed. There's no other way to put it. So he goes for a short trade, and Pyke, you can't go for a short trade versus Pyke because he's going to win. He's going to hook you. He's going to proc his hail of blades, and you're going to die. If this hook hits and he ignites him, and he has his hail of blade 3 autos and then Ezreal autos, he's going to die or he's going to flash. He's going to be 100 health, and this is not how you want to play this matchup. So we can see what happens on paper. Oh, what happens in reality here. He goes for a hook, he finds an auto, and then he tries to dodge it. And if he dodges it, okay, it's kind of like a neutral trade. If this hook, the lane is over. So very fortunate that Pyke misses this hook. And this is not in Nautilus control whatsoever. So in the end, it turns out that the trade was favorable for him. And trades like this, I don't think are the way to go about it. You want to give your opponent the least possible number of opportunities to generate leads. And this would mean to just be controlling the mid bush, waiting for the second wave to come, realizing that the Nautilus has 2 stacks of Relic versus only the 1 stack from Pyke, and then he hits the melees of the second wave, he gets level 2, and then he can look for a trade where it's actually favorable. You can kind of see what I'm talking about in terms of the Glacial in this matchup not being able to do anything. Like he has to run away, and if he had Aftershock, he would be able to stand and fight a little bit more. If he had Hail of Blades, he would be able to spam 3 autos and not even lose the trade whatsoever, potentially. So let's just have a look at what he does with the level 2 spike. He's posturing forwards aggressively. He doesn't have sweep to sweep out this ward. He just saw the ward placed here. So he's going for another trade here. And once again, like you can see how badly this can turn out versus Pyke. So he hits level 2 here. He hooks at a really good time so that he can level up W as he hits level 2 here. So that was like really good timing from him. But now Pyke is randomly auto-attacking him instead of just flinging him back into the tower and potentially killing him or forcing him a flash. So it really looks like Pyke is out of his depth here in terms of player skill. But in terms of the matchup, CoreJJ is not playing this appropriately, in my opinion. Maybe he knows this player, and maybe he just has supreme confidence that he's gonna... I'm not sure. I think it's a bit copium going down that trail of thinking. But yeah, he gets hooked, even though it should have been hooked a lot quicker, and he should have been further out of position, maybe even under tower after the hook. And this is how the trade should go if Nautilus hooks in first and he doesn't have Halo Blades or Aftershock. Around the 3rd wave, you want to make a decision as to whether you're likely to get ganked or not. And Nidalee normally wants to full clear and have really high tempo in the jungle, but CoreJJ is respecting that Nidalee does 3 camps on red side into ganking because their wave state hasn't crashed yet, and Pyke is quite good at gank setup. So this is just something that he determines is necessary. If he had sweep, then he would hold sweep, and then the ADC would potentially look for a ward here. The ADC would not have to have used her ward at all before the lane, and she would just clear this wave and drop a ward around here, or even before this wave crashes, she drops a ward around here and comes back to lane. But since he didn't go sweep, he can do it himself right here. And they're just trying to crush the wave. You don't want the wave to be in a frozen wave state over here. You can't accomplish anything. And so they crash the wave, and now they can either base or look to cheese from the bush. It's totally up to them. This is a perfect window to look for a cheese because you're not planning to contest this wave if you are respecting the gank and your jungler's topside. You don't even want to get prio on this wave because you want the wave state to be frozen on your side of the lane so that they have to overextend. So this is pretty much a win-win to look for a cheese. Looks for a hook, it misses, it happens. But now, this is once again like the incompetence of this Pyke is kind of flaring up more and more, where after this hook misses, Pyke can really, really be aggressive. He can E forwards here and look to Q. Because Nautilus doesn't have hook. He can stay out of the Nautilus's auto range and then Q him towards here and then use his Hail of Blades, and then Nautilus just going to get absolutely annihilated here. So it's very fortunate that for CoreJJ that this Pyke is not playing this matchup appropriately. But in terms of the wave management, it is pushing back into him. And this is where he wants the wave state to be, so that he can look for hooks without many consequences. and that his both of the members here are more safe from all-ins. So Kai'Sa gets hooked in here, and then he finds a hook onto the Ezreal, which is great target selection. And then Ezreal kind of ease forward on a really weird angle. So we can have a look at this all-in. And this is something that CoreJJ does really well in finding great all-ins in tricky matchups. So he's deciding between Pyke and Ezreal, and maybe Pyke is respecting the hook here, and he throws it on Ezreal, and he's probably telling himself that Ezreal is not going to be able, he's not going to expect the hook on himself, and he's not going to E away in time. He's not going to buffer the E, or he's not going to E after the Q, or before the Q hooks, anything like that. So he hooks Ezreal, Ezreal's not expecting it, he gets the auto, and he gets his full combo, and he drops an Ignite as well, and then Pyke kind of ease forward and dies. So this was quite strange. Blue team is really playing this horrendously, but it was a great hook, and even if Ezreal and Pyke, disengage this fight better, it would still be a great spot for CoreJJ to be in. And this was also really good by CoreJJ, where Ezreal eased forward really strangely, and his E is on a gigantic cooldown, so he knows that Ezreal has no E here, and he's holding his hook so that the Ezreal jukes around and eventually gets into flash auto range. So even if Ezreal flashes here, the auto is going to land, and then he's going to be rooted, and then he can get hooked afterwards. So he's going to hook W, and then he's going to auto W and then hook, and Ezreal's going to die. So this is really well done, and what needs to happen here is they shove the wave. And this is where Dematerializer comes in handy, where you can just hard shove and control waves a lot faster in the early game. And that's what they're going to do. They're going to hard shove this wave, and he's going to find a base. And now bot wave state is good. And so here's another interesting point that I noticed. So the first point that I learned from watching this game is that Dematerializer doesn't necessarily have to be in a really tough matchup or a really even matchup where you really are just trying to get the priority advantage where it otherwise may be hard to determine. It can be used when you're ahead, like here, when you kill the enemy lane and you just want to get a fast reset. Or maybe even when you're behind and you want to thin out a wave before you get dove. There's always going to be a way for you to use Dematerializer to help your bot wave state, and that's something that I'm going to take forwards. The other point is that I oftentimes don't like going for cloth armor, just sitting on cloth armor before Ruby Crystal, because without the health pool to back it up, resistances don't really do that much. And the point, like the counter argument, is that the cloth armor allows him to get his tier 2 boots faster, because he's probably looking to go for Tabis versus Ezreal, Pyke, and Darius, Kiana, whatever. So him going the cloth armor first, that's definitely something that I wouldn't do, but I can see its value. And this may not be necessary if he took futures over DMAT, but he didn't, and this is perfectly fine. Here, he's pathing straight bot. He's going to be in lane, and he's going to try and prevent the crash. And so this is a really good wave state, and this happened from them crashing the previous wave. And so, yeah, looking for a hook on Ezreal. This is always a really good idea. Ezreal, his E is a much longer cooldown, and if he doesn't have much mana stacked up, the E costs quite a lot of his mana pool as well. So now Ezreal's wave is a little bit scary, and he has no E, and so he just kind of has to base. With that being said, Nautilus, once again, hanging around here on this wave is achieving absolutely nothing. He should be pressuring in fog here. And on the following bot wave, he should look to crash this wave. Right now, he's just going to be showing in lane. He's just going to be like maybe getting some XP, but it achieves absolutely nothing. He's been an XP sponge. He needs to be in fog, so that the enemy team doesn't know where Nautilus is. Maybe Nautilus is going to contest the camp here, or clear out vision, or gank mid, or something like that. And so yeah, he's just okay. So this is the annoying part, where like he doesn't necessarily accomplish anything by being in lane, and then he just gets something out of it because Pyke is randomly really far up in the lane for absolutely no reason and gets hooked. So what Pyke should do is he should sit back here, and what Nautilus should do is that he should be pressuring in fog, potentially generating prio on this wave, and then using that pressure to get deeper vision, or to maybe dive with the bot wave, or even just crash the next bot wave. But Pyke is horribly out of position, and then he just gets hooked. And here's the first point in terms of just trade micro that I want to bring up. I mentioned in my champion guide that using E frivolously on Nautilus is not a good idea. Your mana pool really gets chunked out, and it's hard to land all of that damage, especially on a champ like Pyke, who's gonna E away. Nautilus's E, it's very rarely going to be worth it. It's oftentimes just going to be an absolute waste of 50 mana. So what CoreJJ needs to look for in these types of short trades versus Pyke is just to hold on to the E if the Pyke is out of position. Just hold on to the E, hook, auto, W, run away. That's it. Getting 0 or 1 of the E procs is not worth it here. And now his mana pool is a little bit lower. But he's pressuring from the right area. He's pressuring from fog. And right now, it looks like they're trying to deny experience from the enemy bot lane, and they're not trying to crash this wave. They're going to try and crash the following wave. And this Pyke is just really struggling to accomplish anything in this lane. He's not looking for counter trades. He has hook here, so once he gets hooked, he should just channel his own hook here. I don't know why he's just randomly autoing and Eing away. He can hook and then E back, and then Nautilus is going to die under tower. But yeah, they're going to shove, and they're going to try and crash this following wave. So they're trying to crash as big a wave as possible. There was a potential to call for a dive on this gigantic wave and maybe lean in fog and help mid to shove and then dive, but they decide to just try and maximize in a 2v2 setting. So yeah, let's see what happens on this big wave. Step 1. Getting a hook onto Israel, so there's a bit of damage, and also forcing his gigantic E cooldown. And if you remember what happened in the earlier fight, is Israel used his he used his flash to try and escape Nautilus's flash. So CoreJJ knows that Israel has no flash. He knows that this wave is gigantic, and denying this big wave will be so important to Snowball. And so when I was watching this the first time, I was begging in my mind for them to actually dive the Israel, and I was really happy when I saw this. Israel, no flash, no E, and this is just a straightforward kill. I think igniting here is a little bit premature. He did it a little bit too early here, and he started taking tower aggro too early, and that ended up costing him his life. He should be a little bit more patient here and realize how gigantic of a window he has to dive this Israel. He can just walk up into auto range. He can just patiently walk up, auto, E, ignite, whatever, and then Kai'Sa can damage a little bit faster, and he wouldn't have to take this additional tower shot. But at the end of the day, it was a great decision, and it's really snowballing the bot lane. The bot wave is in a great state, and he's going to get his tabis and pressure the map, is what I'm looking for here. So this time he's not pathing bot, and he's pathing straight towards bot river and towards mid, which is good. There's absolutely no point in being around bot here. And he's going for a bit of a trade. He's trying to help the skirmish here, and he does the best job that he can. He almost kills the Nidalee, and his Zed dies. He tries to kill the Kiana in response. It's a little bit tricky. He ends up getting the kill, so whatever. That's fine. He did the best job that he could. And all the while, his bot wave is in a great state. So what he needs to do here is either try to hold the bot freeze so that Israel can't shove the wave in base, or he determines that bot wave state is not that important anymore, and that he just wants to permanently pressure around the middle of the map now, generate mid prio, and play for Herald. So in my opinion, when the timer approaches 8 minutes towards Herald, bot wave state is less important, and you want to look for more opportunities to unlock doing Herald. However, there always is going to be value in trying to prevent the bot crash, and especially if your jungler is on this side of the map and can't do Herald right now. then there is an argument for this. But the problem is Israel kills the minions, and he's no longer going to be out of position. So this is the next annoying part, where honestly some of these mistakes are just really unforgivable. They're like really low elo mistakes that the blue team is making here, where Israel has cleared the way, right? There's absolutely no reason for Israel to hang around anymore. They don't have great vision of this area. There's no way in hell they're going to get a tower plate. And they should know that Nautilus is coming back off of a reset. So they shove the wave, they back off. And then Nautilus needs to be around mid instead. Because if he's around here and Israel backs off, he's going to achieve absolutely nothing. So this feels like maybe he has a read on the Korean solo queue meta that people just hang around and are really greedy, and he wouldn't do this in a pro game. Or he's autopiloting and doesn't pass to the most pressuring spot. So with all of that being said, Israel does hang around for no reason, and he does find and engage. And what I want to have a look at here is how he handles the situation, because he should know that Israel has E, and he doesn't want to instantly hook and Israel E out. But once he notices Israel use exhaust on the Kai'Sa, then he looks to hook before Israel E's, because Israel exhausting the Kai'Sa means that he wants to try and kill the Kai'Sa, and he's not going to look to use his E defensively. So this was just a really good fight assessment from CoreJJ. So he sees Israel's thinking right now, my only chance is to try and kill the Kai'Sa here, and then he hooks. And then if Israel is away, he's going to die to Diana anyway. He's already tried to return damage, and yeah. So now he should shove the wave and he should base. He should shove the wave and back off and control around the middle of the map. And that's exactly what he's going to do. Good stuff. They actually decide to find a kill around bot lane instead. So what they easily could have done, translated this pressure towards mid, and either look to set up for a pick around here or help shove the next mid wave and then do heralds. They decided to instead try to snowball bot. And I'm very surprised here that the Nautilus doesn't just hook the Pyke. He is easily in range here, and then he can hook, ult, and get a free kill. Maybe he didn't expect Pyke to be here right now, and he shows, and then he's like, ah, shit. I kind of have to just try and ult him now. So this was a bit of a missed opportunity. He still finds the ult, and yeah, it doesn't turn out too well. Not worth giving Israel a kill when they were so far behind. So Nautilus's Q is heavily delayed here, and he was trying to react to cancel the Pyke's Q, but it's very hard to do that, and Diana ends up dying for it. So this overall passage of play wasn't the greatest, but they did deny the entire stacked wave, which is important to note. And step one of this two-step process, he is forcing big cooldowns. He can't engage, he can't all in right now, but now that Israel has no E, that opportunity is much more possible. But they don't decide to pull the trigger on Nautilus's next Q. I think this was a missed opportunity. Maybe they were scared of Nidalee being around bot, but Pyke is just coming from base from dying, and yeah, if Nautilus hooks in, and he's just going to die and lose more minions, lose a plate. But he decides against it, probably from lack of jungle information, I would assume. And here, he's running past mid, and he's playing towards heralds when his jungler is on the top side of the map, which is fantastic. Really good to see that. He's also not hitting this ward so that they don't know of his whereabouts. However, he gets a bit sloppy here and shows on the where the Kiana could be in this path. He shows himself, so he should be hugging this side, and then he would only get spotted by this ward. But still, he's pressuring around the correct part of the map right now. He should shove this wave and use that prio to pressure either side of the map. And it turns out that they lost Herald, and so he should get mid prio and then move towards bot afterwards. So he kind of leaves his Zed a little bit out to dry here. I think he should hang around here for much longer. He should deem that preventing these minions from dying is not realistic, and that there's a fight going on right here, right now. But instead what happens is that, again, the Israel and Pike are hanging around for so long looking for trades when they have full information of Nort walking down. And what they can do here is shove. He can use his relic stack on here, and then Israel can clear these minions, or they can just back off around here, and they should be in a fine spot. So again, I'm not sure how to wrap my head around that, but he forces Israel's E, which is okay. I still think pressuring around the middle of the map in this time period would have been much more effective. So here, the Israel still has no E, and he capitalizes on this. Fantastic. He has the idea of how long these cooldowns are in his mind, which is awesome to see. So yeah, he kills the Israel, hanging around bot. We're going to speed up a little bit now. Still pressuring around bot, getting bot tower, and looking for a one-shot on the Israel. Because he has ult and Kaiser has ult. This wouldn't be possible without Kaiser having ult. So once again, his fight assessment is just really, really good. And determining when people are out of position and can be killed, and determining when to one-step or two-step. Flashing the Pike ult as well, and then finding a hook. So he's playing these fights just outstandingly. Okay. Then he finds a base, and he decides to run top here. I was a little bit confused at the start, the first time that I watched this, because the only thing he could achieve around here is soaking up a little bit of XP here. Whereas if he's pressuring in fog around here, or potentially helping Diana shove this next mid wave, you can achieve a lot more. So he kind of paths top, doesn't really get too much done, and then he does end up moving between lanes, staying in fog, clearing vision, and warding away from potential pink locations. And this is something that I advocate for in my vision video, where you don't want to ward like in this bush or in range of pinks from bushes. So he wards here, and the only way you're going to clear this with a pink is a pink over here. And he also wards over here. This is going to be cleared by a pink over here, so I think you should have put it a little bit higher. But it's not the most common pink location, and it does provide relevant information right now. You also might not have the tempo to walk around and get a deep reward, so this is good. And now comes the mid to late identity as Nautilus. You're going to pressure mid, you're going to control mid, you're going to prioritize mid waves. You should prioritize mid wards. This is something that CoreJJ does not value or forgot in this game. After the mid tower breaks. So before the mid tower breaks, getting a mid ward is not as valuable because the lane's so short and there's not much you can do with that information. So he drops his third ward here instead. So his 3 wards have been 2 here and then 1 here. And yeah, he's just all of these wards are providing very valuable information. So that's cool to see. And now, yeah, he's going to be controlling mid and then moving to a side. And then controlling mid and then moving to a side. So he's moving to a side here, and the fight's already done, and there are 3 members down here. So I think what should have happened here is that they realized that Diana is just dead. So you can move down to this, you can move down to this, see what happens. Dead. Okay. So yeah, this fight's kind of done, and they need to move back to mid wave and rinse repeat. Get mid prio and then look to move to a side. Get mid prio, look to move to a side. Here, they're way overextending on the sides, and they're conceding mid wave. So the blue team gets access to mid wave here. So this is a really bad passage of play, in my opinion, from their bot lane. And he's hanging around, cancels his base, doesn't have any wards. And they finally get the next mid wave. So yeah, he's really delaying his tempo. He needs to get back to base to try and find to refill his wards and then come back out on the map. But ever since he cancelled the base, he wanted to get mid prio, he wanted to prevent Nidalee from getting these camps, and now he wants to prevent Nidalee from recalling. So he sneaks into the bush, and it's very unfortunate. They didn't know he was here. It's unfortunate that she moves forwards here to look for a Q. But he does just one-shot the Darius pretty easily with Kai'Sa. So that's all well and good. And yeah, we're going to speed this part up. What I'm looking for in this mid to late when the mid tower is gone is that he really needs to prioritize getting a mid ward. So what needs to happen here is Nautilus moves mid, uses his stacks on this wave, and then escorts the wave forward, gets a ward around here, or gets a ward around here. Instead, he comes out of base, he wards Herald, and here. And now these wards, these are the wards I have a problem with. These are not good wards. If you shove mid out, you get a deep mid ward, and then this ward is not necessary. You can get a much more valuable ward maybe around here, or around here. Having a mid ward here and here, that doesn't really accomplish much. They're too close together, and a mid ward here will provide information when the enemy team is going to contest the next mid wave, so that you have more space with which to get a deeper ward in their jungle. This ward here, this is a really, really weak ward. If you get perma mid prior, you should be able to easily control river, and then you want your pink wards in river and your green wards in the enemy jungle. So yeah, I'm really not a fan of his ward decisions here. But apart from the warding, well, we're going to have a look at the fight that unfolds. He flash hooks onto the Nidalee, and Nidalee uses stopwatch, and they just get a kill. So his fight assessment is really, really good. It's hard to overstate that. He looks for an opportunistic ult. I'm fine with that. And once again, he's used up all of his wards. And so this is this is kind of the main theme of the mid to late, where he is playing around mid really well. He is pressuring mid. He's for the most part he's allowing mid prior, but he's not getting mid lane wards, and he is staying on the map for too long without any wards, and he's not getting the most out of them. And so yeah, he looks for a hook. Pike ease away, and Nautilus getting picks on the mid wave. That's exactly what I was talking about in my Naut guide video. They get prio here, and then you use this prio to move to an objective, and you can secure the objective. You can look for picks around here as he did, or you can just look to kill the dragon and get out. Darius kind of hangs around too long and dies, and I talked about opponents having to be diligent versus Nautilus, and they're not, so gets a free kill here, and he's hanging around and gets another pick around here. So this is something that I have observed. I'm not necessarily saying it's optimal, but he has sacrificed his tempo a lot to stay on the map for certain time periods. When he moved down bot for this fight, and then he didn't base, I think that was a bad decision, and it didn't result in anything. I also think hanging around this whole period of 60 seconds with no wards, never looking to base and come back out on the map with full wards and get mid prior, I also think it's bad. But he gets kills, and I have a feeling this might be a Korean solo queue specific thing. I have personally played on the Korean solo queue on the Korean client for 4 different years on 4 different times as well. And players are very aggressive, and you can reliably find chaotic fights like this. Okay, so he still hasn't based. So he's going to be on, their bot lane is going to be on quite a lot of gold, and he hasn't been able to get his wards back for quite a long time. And yeah, he finally tries to find a base, and then he gets stopped, and Kai'Sa's just really fed. So there's not much to go over here. The only thing I do want to point out here is his use of Locket, in terms of not locketing the Darius ult. This is just a really easy time to lock it, and he does it far too late here, and the shield decays, and it doesn't give the full value, so he might have lived here if he used this Locket better. I do want to pay attention to him controlling the middle of the map, and he's pressuring the right area. He just really needs to get his mid lane wards down so that he can do it much more. And so yeah, they get a bunch of kills around mid, and then they just escort the Herald, and they snowball and win the game from here. Okay, so to summarize, he needs to go sweeper for lane bush for mid bush control, and he needs to assess this matchup differently, the Nautilus vs Pike. In my opinion, he needs Aftershock or Hob. He needs to not look for short trades when Pike can easily hook him back and then kill him or force him to flash or chunk him really, really hard. He needs to be more mindful of pressing E in lane. I think I had it in my notes that he did it twice, and I forgot to mention it the second time. But pressing E when Pike's going to E away, or pressing E when you're like half mana or less, so that you can't have another full combo, not a great idea. And also running sweeper. That's the other thing that I forgot to mention. So he just ran sweeper for the entire game after his first base, I believe. He always had sweeper. And something that I've advocated for and done myself is to have sweeper for the mid bush for the early lane, and then swap to trinket after your first base, so that you can have that trinket to ward somewhere. But having sweeper when you are going to find your roam windows towards the middle of the map, and that's going to happen, it should happen from 8 minutes and onwards, then you really want to make sure that your roams are not on vision, and your trinket is going to have less value if you are roaming and pressuring around mid. And then useful nuances. You want to ward out of common pink locations. You don't want your wards to get cleared out for free. You also want to look for opportunities to dive. When he dove to Israel, when Israel had no E and he forced it, that was a really good dive angle. I think he missed a potential dive opportunity in terms of stacking a big bot wave, using mid prio, moving that down to 4-man and dive on the following opportunity, but still looking for that opportunity. It can really snowball games out of control. And also battle wards. This is something that I'm going to try and find the timestamp. So in this game, he did one battle ward. This was when he used a ward here and a ward here, and I wasn't the biggest fan. But he does put a ward in the bush here after this little skirmish, so that he can see if someone follows up, or if Nidalee tries to drop vision and escape using the brush. That battle ward is a really good counter for that. And also, I missed Nautilus buffering Pike's Q with his Q. I'm not going to go and find it. I'm sure you can understand or picture what I'm talking about. Pike Qs, and then Nautilus hooks the wall, and then as Nautilus gets pulled away, he gets pulled back through the wall with buffering his Q on CC. So that he did that once as well. So that was cool. Those are some nuances that he did. That's going to be it for part 1 of reviewing CoreJJ solo queue games. I hope you learned something from this review. I know that I certainly did. And keep an eye out for part 2, which is going to be coming out in the near future, where I'm going to be reviewing him on an enchanter. As always, please feel free to join my School of Support Discord server. The link is going to be in the description below, just to join a growing support community, to get access to some cool support resources, or for individual coaching if that's something that you would be looking for. Thanks for watching again, and bye.